Can I drink when we talk?
You can drink if you want. Yeah. Ooh. What are you drinking?
Just tea. My
Ooh.
voice has been like scratchy and dry for like weeks,
Yeah.
which is it doesn't matter, and I'm not doing a whole lot, but I've got a lot of music shows coming up that I'm like,
Yeah, you need that voice. You need that singing voice.
yeah.
Um okay, welcome back to Homophonic, everybody. My name is Zach. I'm your host, clearly. I don't know why I just introduced myself, but
I think
I'm
every
really
podcast
excited.
they do. Every podcast host introduces himself every podcast.
They do. They do. And it feels strange every time I do it. But hello, everybody. I'm so excited. That voice that you are hearing, I'm really excited. This is a very special episode. It is my very own brother, Alex W.G. Rickel.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
For those of you that might know him, I mean, down in your region of Louisville, Kentucky, you are the lead singer, right, of Future
Mm-hmm.
Killer?
Mm-hmm.
And you are a musician, you are an artist, a sculptor,
Mm-hmm.
a dog dad,
Mm-hmm.
a lighting expert.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What am I missing?
Um. Uh. Social terrorist.
Social terrorist. Very much a social terrorist. Yeah. Maybe that'll be the title of episode, just social terrorists. Social
Well, I
terrorism.
want you to get flagged.
Seriously. I'm starting to hear that echo again.
I'll turn the headphones down.
Okay. Yeah, maybe just because your
I hear an
microphone's just so
echo
powerful.
in your room.
Do you hear like your voice echoing, or do you hear just
No,
me?
I just hear like your room. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I'm sorry, everyone. I made a big deal about my brother having a microphone set up and like made everything being all like, oh yeah, like try to be as professional as possible, whatever. I didn't actually make a huge deal about it, but do all of that, and then I left my attachment to plug in my microphone somewhere. So I am
Dongle.
without without my dongle, if you will. Misplaced my dongle. I love that word dongle.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's so
just
silly.
it is a good word, but it's also like we're at the peak of human technology, and it's like, oh crap, I don't have my dongle.
My
My dongle's gone missing. I can't do anything.
I can't find my dongle. I can't feel my dongle.
I wonder how many dongles go missing in the U.S. military. Sir, we can't
Right.
fire the weapons. The dongle. I think it's in
The
my car.
dongle. Seriously. What have you been up to?
Gosh, lots of music land all the time, pretty much these
Yeah.
days. I've got a pile of fabrication jobs I'm kind of not. I'm supposed to be working on, but I haven't done those yet. We're recording a lot right now, and
Cool.
we recorded this EP. We did it all ourselves, which I think is going to be our kind of forever method.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one we did with like tracking, so like we did bass and drums and some vocals and guitar, but everything but the drums were scratched, meaning it's just there to get a good live performance out of the drums, and then we redo it all. And that's cool, that's fine, but we all decided, because our live show is such a big part of who we are, our energy, that we decided we needed to invest and develop some technologies to help us capture our sound just as we play all together simultaneously. So I built this large box, sound dampening box, that encases my bass cab and traps a lot of the sound in there, so it's not bleeding into the microphones or the drums and the vibraphones. We have a special mic on the vibraphones that cancels out any other frequencies other than what we want going into it. And
Wow.
yeah, we've done a lot of that kind of work. And then this old console that I mentioned earlier, I've had to take that apart twice now and fix a couple of things. And our other brother Ben, he might come down and we might do a lot of work on it together and replace more substantial components within the circuitry to kind of
Oh,
beef it up.
interesting.
Yeah, so it's funny
When
how much time it takes.
Yeah, oh my god, seriously. One thing this is like completely off topic and of anything that we were going to talk about, but one thing that I was getting kind of really frustrated with today is that like people just don't understand what goes into creative work in general. It could
Mm,
be music, it could be graphic design, it can be video, it could be photo,
yeah.
it could be an amalgamation of all of that, right? And then some audio editing. Maybe it's not music, but maybe it's audio editing.
Right.
Like creative work,
Gosh,
there's
what an
so much that
unsung
goes
thing
into
too.
it.
Audio
Yeah,
editing, it's like it's one thing if you're making a cool song. It's another thing if you're just like cutting through audio of like an audio book. Like no one's like praising that person, you know? That's hours and
right.
hours and hours. Also, anytime like I film a thing, I have to go watch all that footage. It
Yeah,
takes forever just to be like, what do I want to use? And then you talk about
right.
making a thing for like social media consumption. Like I'll
Hmm.
film, I'll have like an hour total of footage, which isn't much compared to other, things I'll film. But then I got to cram that down to like 3.5 minutes. Like it's
Right.
insane.
It's crazy. And I was thinking about all of this because I was like, people don't understand the work that it takes to go into this, even like meme creation, like what I do,
Mm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And for then people to go on the internet and just waste so much time hating things and telling you and going out of their way to tell
Yeah.
you how much they don't like something. I get that, like, because like the thing is that like I understand that we're like we all have different tastes, right? We like, especially you and I, quite
Right.
literally like
A to
very
Z.
opposite, A to Z, right? Like very different in many many ways. So we all have different tastes and whatnot, and so we're not all going to like the same things, and that's fine. And I'm all about a tactful discourse about like, you know, why you might not like a song, or why you might not like this meme, or why you might not like this photo or whatever, right? But people just go out of their way and spend so much time and energy to get truly nasty on the
Yeah.
internet, especially. And I noticed it today because I had posted a carousel of memes on Sunday that uh, was really like just very, it was very meta. It was about how Lady Gaga's new song sounds similar to a remix of Madonna's Frozen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I knew
Let
that
it
putting
go. Let it
let it
go.
go. Exactly.
I didn't know that was Madonna.
and and I knew that like putting that out there, people would get like I knew that they would continue that narrative of like Lady Gaga copies Madonna, right?
Oh
So I
yeah,
was
yeah,
trying
right.
so that was kind of what the whole meme carousel was about, was that like was like started with me like kind of presenting that, oh yeah, her new single has similarities to this remix of Frozen, but then it like kind of goes through this like very meta conversation about like, oh, I don't want to like start this narrative, and then it's just very silly. But people were still getting nasty in the comments, even though like very clearly in the meme carousel, I was like, let's not, right? Essentially, I was basically like, we don't need to go there. Like, it's not, this conversation's been beaten to death. And I was just, and but there was one person in particular who was just like commenting on like two or three different comments, just being like, yeah, the song sucks, blah, 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 blah. And I was just kind of like you're literally just wasting your time right now going out of your way talking about something that you don't like.
Yeah.
And imagine if you put so much energy, that same, or I should say that same energy, into something that you love or something
Yeah.
that actually matters, right?
Positively charged slime. Remember
Positively.
Ghostbusters 2?
Oh my God, do I remember Ghostbusters too?
And it's the negatively charged slime just flowing into the city, and everyone's just getting all pissed off and yelling at each other. That's it. Social media is the negatively charged slime. We gotta play it some Jackie Wilson and get it to dance and move around.
Right. Your love keeps taking me higher. Like,
Yeah.
come on. Anyway, I that's a little like tangent, but it was just something that I've been thinking about a lot today because I was just like, wow, like people really do go out of their way to just really let you know. And it's not even, it's like, it would be one thing if it would be on their own account, right? But they
Hmm.
go to your account or my, or wherever and just be
Yeah.
like, "Blah, blah, blah, I
Well,
don't
more
like
people are
this."
gonna see it if they complain on your account.
Yeah.
Even though they have like 150 followers or something, like no one cares. So they're
Yeah.
just, and I think it plays into like people love to complain. I when I'm feeling bad about stuff, I'll complain, and it sort of helps you feel like you have some control, and then you just get the anonymity of the internet and people go wild with it, you know. It's like
Yeah.
it, and you know,
It
I don't know why, but they want to tear things down instead of build things up. You can say whatever you want. I love being like, I don't care for it. I thought it was terrible. But I always have the caveat of like, that's what I think. Now, I also
mhm.
think, hell yeah, go be creative and make something. Like, we need people to be creative. You don't have
Yeah.
to do everything I like. I like a lot of weird stuff, you know? But
Yeah.
like, and I could always speak my truth without having to like cut people down, you know? Just because I don't like it, what doesn't mean anything. I'm just one person. Who cares? I'll tell you
Right.
what I think
Yeah.
if you want, but like, you know, I'm only going to knock things that are actually like negative and destructive, you know. That's the only things I'm going to really try to shoot down are things that are trying to shoot other things down, you know.
Right. Yeah. And then again, it's not like obviously I also think it's interesting that social media has made people feel entitled to just constantly share their opinion on everything.
Mm,
It's like cuz my what I was thinking about too was I was like, yes, you're entitled to have an opinion. You're entitled to have multiple opinions, right? I don't know if you're necessarily entitled to share that opinion, and like, or I should say like, you're not always invited to share that opinion. I don't care if you've
mm,
seen something on a public platform or not.
mm,
Like you're not always your opinion doesn't always count in those situations.
yeah.
And I don't know. Like again,
That's
and
just
there's a
why,
different
like, what's the motivation for, you know what I mean? I think that's a big part of it too. It's like, why are you sharing this right now? To what
yeah,
end? What are you trying to
right.
accomplish by saying this on the internet? By being
Right.
mean in a comment section on Instagram? You know, like
Right.
where it's a sad, lonely world that person is living. And if even if they have a bunch of friends and do stuff, like they still are a sad, lonely world within their mind and heart. You know, like think about it. That's the only people that do that kind of stuff. No
Yeah.
one's like living a fulfilled, happy life, doing what they love, or you know, finding balance between you know the people in their community themselves and their creative attributes, and then they're going on the internet being like fucking stupid assholes. You know, it's not who's
Right.
doing that. You know.
Exactly. Exactly. But anyway, that's my little like tangent rant that I was just like, I've been thinking about it a lot. And especially, I mean, obviously times are fucking crazy right now. And,
What do you mean?
well, you know,
Just kidding.
just like, just like
Why? Why?
another
Why?
plane crash today. Like, it's just like
Yeah.
the crazy, like, I don't even want to say his name, but just like, everything that's been going on in this country just in the last like 6 weeks has been
Mm. You know, I'm not on
absurd.
on any social media right now.
You're not?
Yeah, I shut it down.
I kind of wondered because I was gonna say I haven't seen your stuff usually pops up,
Hmm.
and now that you say that, I haven't seen it. Usually it takes like 3 weeks for me to like kind of notice because
Yeah.
of course the way the algorithms work now, it's never like people that whose stuff I want to see. It's always like random
Yeah.
shit or like I
Hmm.
don't know. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. So
Always. Yeah. It's kind of a two-headed thing. Really, the big motivator, obviously, it's something we think we all wrestle with. Is just like the times suck, and I just had so many moments where I was just staring into my phone, so sad. I didn't want to be there anymore, but then I didn't have any motivation to do anything else, so I just stayed there. It's awful. I hate that feeling. And the other thing
yeah.
is that I, like you're saying earlier, you know, the effort it takes to make a thing. And content, I think sometimes is fine, but sometimes is a gross word. I'll use it here because it makes sense. You know, to create content for your social media platform of choice or all of them, whatever it is, it
Hmm.
takes so much time and effort and creativity, especially if it's going to be a good thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't get paid for that. You don't get paid for that. And yet
Mm-mm.
there are people who have like are billionaires that are trapping people in their phones and just staring at their phones because of all of us that want to make something beautiful to share or funny to share or whatever, thoughtful. And
Yeah.
you know, we all make the stuff that goes on there, and then they make billions of dollars off of it, and they are also depressing an entire generation of people, I mean, not generations as like boomers and zoomers or whatever, but I mean like everybody who's alive using the internet right now is fucking depressed about it, and
Yeah.
that's by design. It was amazing when we would get on Instagram and then and you would hit that moment and it would say you're all caught up. Remember that? And you're like,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, I guess I'll go back out and do stuff. And then,
Right.
but they intentionally turned it into like a digital casino. Now you don't know what
Yeah.
time it is, and you're just like, there's no end. And then even like I have been on it long enough to be like, you've already shown me this. We've seen this in
Right.
the Explore tab. Well, I've already liked it. I've already saved it to my lamps, but folder. Like,
Right.
why am I seeing this again? And
Right.
then yet I'm still there. Oh, maybe there's another one. Like it's gross. Oh, and also, when you delete it and get off of it, you'll start getting advertisements for it, which is
Oh,
interesting
sure.
because they're like, you're missing out. And then also, I am severely punished because I still have to post about Future Killer and stuff every now and then. I'm about to play just a little solo show for a flood relief benefit, and I'll need to get on mine and talk about that. And
Uh-huh.
I did this recently when we announced a big show with Future Killer, and it was like 30 people liked it. And it's like, well, that was not our
Mhm.
numbers pre me deleting it. They're like, naughty, naughty, you're not playing our game. We won't show it
Right.
to anybody. You gotta earn your way back.
Exactly. It's crazy. No, that's crazy. And I actually, it's funny that you mentioned that because, I haven't deleted my social media. I have been very active on social media. And something that I noticed on Instagram on Sunday. So, a thing that I've been doing lately is because obviously my meme page is very music focused, pop music
Mm-hmm.
focused, whatnot. And so in my stories, what I've been doing, I was like, well, now that Instagram has that music feature where you can like add whatever song to your story essentially as long as it's in their library.
Oh,
Um,
right.
I've been doing like, what I've been listening to lately and just kind of sharing just random songs that I've been either rediscovering or just listening to. And I do it several times a week. For whatever reason, whenever I do that, it suppresses my engagement. So just to like kind of put it into comparison, when I post a story, it will get anywhere between 3,000 to 6,000 views. I have 118,000 followers, right? And so, and that story will last for 24 hours. So it can accumulate up to like, sometimes it's even like 7,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm doing this with the music, and let's say I share 8 to 10 stories in a row of different songs that I've been listening to lately, it will get maybe 500 views.
So weird.
And I'm like, I'm utilizing the tools that you are providing.
Yeah.
You essentially are encouraging your users to use the music that is in your platform to apply to their stories or reels or whatever, and you're punishing me for it.
Is it because it's
You're
not like the popular song currently in fad?
that potentially could be it, but it's like it's just one of those weird things where it's kind of like in all of their, because I've been trying to research like how can I like make my account grow more and things like that, and they are very much into like use the tools that are within our platform, right?
Oh, I
Like,
got a story about that.
and it's just, and I'm just kind of like, it's weird, and I'm like, do you think that I'm spamming people? Like, am I doing too many of them?
Like,
I just
yeah, like too many hashtags. Remember when that was the whole thing? I
right,
think you're the
yeah,
one who
and
told me like keep it to 8 because any more they'll think you're spamming.
right, yeah, and I'm not even using hashtags, and I might at people, like, especially if they're, like, an independent artist or whatever, I'll try to, like, tag them in the story and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
um, but, yeah, I don't know, it's really weird, and it's not like you get a violation or, like, a notice or anything. It's not like they're like, "Oh, we think that your
Right.
account's been hacked," or whatever. They just are like, nope, we're just gonna suppress all of
Yeah.
your content and it's not gonna be able to be seen. And now,
That's a
and as
big
soon as,
thing. It's like
yeah,
they do that, and the fact that so much of this happens in the shadows. I mean, it's from small things like that, like which can feel bigger, especially if you're like really trying, like with what you do, or like if anyone's out there is, they have a small business or an artist, band, whatever, like musician, like it's become crucial because everyone goes to these platforms for their information now. Um,
right.
and like when I made those something videos, the first few I edited those within Instagram's app.
Hmm.
And when I got a different video editing software for my phone, and I uploaded the first few that were made on that. And so all I did was just upload, according to Instagram, it's just a singular video file. They're like, mm-mm, and that got suppressed because I wasn't using their tools, which is crazy. But I
Yeah.
think, it's like all this stuff, like I said, it happens in the shadows, and that's intentional. And it's like,
Mhm.
I mean, I'll even go back to this. Like, I don't think people want to be on their phones as much as they're on their phones. Do like
Right.
heroin users want to bang heroin in an alley somewhere? No,
Right.
they have
No.
to. Like
Yeah.
they're fucking addicted to it, and so they're
Yeah.
like going back to the watering hole looking for that hit again, because without it, they're like, it's way worse. And I
Yeah.
think we're in a similar spot, but we don't talk about it enough. Like
We
I
don't.
think there will be, hopefully, if we progress and like continue to grow and evolve and be better civilization beyond this point in time, then we will look back at this period and be like, that is wild. Like people were just so unknowingly trapped in these, because we define things like, particularly addiction, as mainly chemical, like physiological addiction is like that's the most recognized addiction in our world. It's like we don't really, we do talk about mental addictions and like things that like happen from whatever, feeling
Yeah.
good, our own internal chemistry, but it's usually the external chemistry that we're talking about with addiction. But like this is a new wave era. It is definitely that internal, there are internal chemicals that are, that are dopamines firing off every time we get a little bling bling, and our likes are, we get more like
Mhm.
numbers and stuff. But like that,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just a matter of time. It's before, like, if that information is not suppressed by an authoritarian ruling body, which
God.
may or may not be developing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because I remember back in the 2020 election, that week I had gained 6,000 followers that in 1 week.
Well,
That's the most I've ever gained in 1 week. And algorithms and social media changed shortly after that,
mhm.
because I remember seeing a huge drop in engagement after that week. Um, but I remember sharing that information with a friend, and I remember her saying, "Wow, that's a lot of like stimulation and like dopamine." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "It's crazy." And
It's
but
riding
now,
you're fucking on a rocket. You're like, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then, but then after that week, when the engagement dropped, you're all of a sudden spiraling. I was spiraling in my head, being like, well, what am I doing wrong?
Mm,
Why don't people like me? And I deal with that all the time now. And
I
that's
know.
one of my biggest struggles, of just being like, what, like I have to like kind of step back and realize that like there is life outside of this.
One, yeah.
And
Actually, that's all. The majority of everything ever is outside of it.
right, yeah.
But it feels so big because it's like the whole world's in here, and it's like everyone and love is on here. Like I had this
Hmm.
beautiful moment. It's been like 4 weeks now, maybe, since I've deleted it. It's funny because it's actually on my phone because I have to post about some stuff, and
Yeah.
it's amazing how even when it's on there, without thinking, I'll like touch it and I'm like, no. And I look at it again. What's cool is the connection is broken. So I'll like realize I'm looking at the page again. I'm like, what am I doing here? How did I get here? But I was
Yeah.
talking to Reagan, who plays vibraphone and Future Killer,
Uh-huh.
and one of the sweetest people, my best friends. I love her very much, and a true genius of our time. Um, and she shared this, I don't think she'd mind me sharing this, but she shared this sweet thing about how like she'll make stuff, and because she's like me, and that's like, oh, this is a window to communicate with people, so like here's this cool animation, or here's like this other funny video, or here's like me talking serious, or here's a song it's like, and so she was trying to acknowledge to herself that she'll like spend all this effort, and then sometimes she's like, well, look at the numbers and be like, where are these people that love me? They're not liking this or like sharing this or whatever.
Right.
And it wasn't until she read a book, gosh, I wish I could remember the name of the book, but that she realized, oh, it's because they're not seeing it. Like,
Yeah.
and that's like part of it's like you're being kept from that, and B, it's like there's so much to see, like, can you get to it all? But it's like the people that I spend the most time with, it has that data, it knows it, but just from who I send the most messages to and stuff, it doesn't like to
Hmm.
show me their things right away. I have to kind of look for them. But also there is a carrot on a stick thing here, which actually, scratch the analogy, this is the best one. This is like, you go to a state fair or whatever, some carnival scenario,
Yeah.
and you see a child wandering with a giant stuffed rabbit. you know that child did not win that stuffed rabbit. That stuffed rabbit was bestowed to that child by the carny who is like, yeah, that one. And they like let the game happen and win. Like, hey, kid, you got the big rabbit. Congratulations. So now, the beginning of that day, that kid's wandering through the carnival with the giant rabbit. So all of us can look at the child with the rabbit and say, that could be me. And then you see the game with the giant rabbit and you go, oh, there's the game with the giant rabbit. I'm going to try. And then you're like $30 in trying to, I don't know, flick a coin at a bucket or something, whatever carnies like you to do. And, you know, but it's rigged. And so you just keep going and going. And eventually like that halfway, you know, a couple hours, like that kid's probably gone. Let's get another kid, another giant bunny. And so then the new cycle of people are like, there's another kid with a fucking rabbit. And that is us. And like who like makes it on social media. There was a period of more organic things exploding and people liking or whatever. But now it's like anything in the information age, there's so much data at people's fingertips that if you want to try to manipulate that data or use it to your advantage, people will in this horrible way. And that's through this. So like, you do well with one of your posts, you're getting a lot of engagement, that's great, you are feeling all that stimulation, all that dopamine, you're like, well, I'm on cloud 9 here. And then but if you kept doing that, maybe you wouldn't try as hard, but then it drops and you're like, what am I doing wrong? How can I? And then you'll have like more posts and do more stuff and try harder, because then you're gonna like, oh, I gotta get that back up there. You're the dude doing heroin in the alley now. Like, I gotta feel good again. I gotta get back. Why? This was working. Why is it not working? You know? And it's designed. Do not think it is not designed. It is incredibly well designed, and it is lives primarily in the shadows. Even down to another quick thing before I'm done on this rant. Reagan had told me that this book she was reading, again, I wish I could remember the name. YouTube is apparently, this has been like a whistleblower has like spoken about this, someone who worked there. It's like, you want to like search for your video of like how to replace this particular fuse in your make and model of your vehicle. Like they'll give you the video of the guy who's like, in 1983, I took my family across the country, and like this long rambling thing that maybe kind of gets there somewhere in there. So you're on the app longer and you got to watch 2 more ads before you get to it, versus the video of like the one woman who's like, it's right here. You go this, it's there, boom, you're done. You know, like that. It's like, it's designed to keep us there longer, because they also realize we all want to be there because it's where we all are. It's not about them. It's about us. That's the most beautiful thing about it. It's about us. All my friends are there. That's why I want to be there. I don't give a fuck about Mark Zuckerberg or any of it, you know, but they also want to capitalize on it. And the best way to do that is to advertise to us. They've been selling our data for a long time. But the next thing, the most immediate, obvious thing, less of the shadows, is all the crazy advertisements now. And, you know,
it's nuts. All the advertising, especially on YouTube, the amount of ads. It's
just in the last
crazy.
like year, the way it's just like, and you'll be like 30 seconds in and you'll have an ad at the beginning. Then like I have watched so many times, it's like 30 seconds, a minute in, and it's another ad. I'm just like, what are we doing here? It's like the amount of ads in like TV when we were growing up, but instead of it being like an hour-long show or something, it's compressed into like a 3-minute video. So it's still like all the same amount of ad breaks. I'm like, oh God.
It's crazy. And then especially if you're watching like a longer form video.
I don't need Cialis.
It's like if you're watching a long form video, it's like all of a sudden you have 48 seconds to a minute of ads that you can't skip. You're forced to watch it, or you're forced to watch 45 seconds of that minute and then you can skip. And it's just like, so much has changed in just the last like couple of years. It's nuts. I can't stand it.
So what does this have to do with pop music?
Great question.
I just looked at the clock and realized
30 minutes and we're like just rambling about social media. Well, the reason why I wanted you on, Alex, is because you and I, when we were home for Thanksgiving, had a really good conversation about what is pop music. And this stemmed from the previous show. I had my friend Jesse on, and Jesse and I were talking about like, what is pop music? And it actually stemmed from that conversation, but it also stems from the conversation that you and I had. I think it was not last Thanksgiving, but the Thanksgiving before, because we were driving in my car and we were listening. I was introducing you to a musician that I like named Z Machine. And we were listening to his song, The Radio. And I remember you calling it a pop song. And I thought that was interesting because Z Machine's an independent artist, and pop music implies, well, I guess the definition of pop music is it's a shortened version of popular, right?
Mm.
So whatever is popular, quote unquote, on the radio or what is on streaming or whatever. But it's interesting because Z Machine, or like there's a plethora of artists that are not getting played on the radio because either they're independent or whatever, but make music that one would consider pop. And it just got me kind of thinking, like, what is pop music? Because when I look at all the artists that I listen to and the actual sound of their songs, it's so different. And I think that when we were talking about this, is that, you know, you've got, I'll just use these examples. You have Baby One More Time by Britney Spears. You have Complicated by Avril Lavigne. And then you have Madonna's Vogue. All considered pop songs, all very different sonically. And so I just have
two
found,
of those are in a very similar time period, whereas one is older.
well, yes, but I would say that Madonna's Vogue is very much in the style of like house music, especially early 90s house music.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Britney Spears' Baby One More Time is your quintessential Y2K Max Martin dance pop song. Like teen pop, bubblegum pop. And then you've got Avril Lavigne's Complicated, which one would probably consider quote unquote pop rock, if you will, right?
Right. Alt pop.
Alt pop. I don't know about alt pop, but like, you know, they're all just very different sonically as far as like the instrumentation and the way that they sound, but they're all still considered pop songs.
You
So
know,
I just
Avril
found,
Lavigne wrote that song while she was doing a maze at a Denny's.
really amazed. Like, what do you mean? Are you serious?
No, she had a crayon. She's like, "Oh, it's so complicated." Just kidding. I just don't want to get too far away from that. That joke is too good.
So good.
She's sitting there scratching her head. God, why do you have to go and make things so complicated?
Complicated. Oh my God, seriously. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I find it really interesting. And the fact that, I mean, I would argue that both of us, the way that we've gotten into music is because of Dad and his love of music and his, I would say, plethora of tastes that he had.
Yeah. Have you talked about his music on the show already?
I have talked about it on the very first episode. I did like a reintroduction episode, if you will, and I had John Michael interview me and just kind of ask me random questions. And one of the questions was like, how did you get into music? And I mentioned Dad, and I was just like, you know, our dad is or was a huge music fan in the sense of like, I don't know another person who owned more CDs than him. Like, I would say thousands of CDs at one point. And
they used to be vinyls, and we threw them all in the backyard as children when he got the CDs.
Nuts.
We destroyed probably first pressings, things that would be like $100. We were throwing like frisbees.
Nuts. Absolutely.
He was
crazy.
Also that kind of guy too. He was like, new thing, I'm done with you, old thing.
Right.
But it made sense, especially for music. He was like, I don't want to store all these vinyls, and CDs are arguably the higher quality. And he's like, I can get a lot more in this cabinet than, you know,
right. Yeah.
like 4 CDs per one vinyl.
Right. Yeah. And so I don't know, like it's interesting too, because when you think of like how then we established our own musical tastes, you and I, like I definitely gravitated to the I would definitely say like the more dance pop realms that he would listen to us. And then I would argue that you definitely went down the more rock alternative route that he would listen to. But then I don't know. We also have like middle ground as well. But
Weird Al Yankovic, our first concert.
Oh my God.
That's our middle ground.
That is so crazy. That is crazy. I almost have no memory of that concert.
Me too. I remember he switched costumes. That was cool. Remember at one point he was Santa Claus, at one point he was Fat Al.
I don't even remember that. I think the only thing that I remember is I remember meeting him. I remember, what did he say to Sean? It was something like,
In the line, I was like, I'm gonna say I've been waiting for this moment my whole life, and then I
uh-huh.
got up there first, and I froze. I was just like, you and so like I kind of like shuffle along, and then Sean's like, my turn. And Sean goes, I've been waiting for this moment my whole life, sir. And then he was like, well, let's go bonkers. It's such an
Yes.
awesome thing, which I'm sure Sean just dead stared him after that, just like smiling. And then he was like, okay, next
Right.
child.
Next child. I remember getting his autograph. I remember meeting him. I remember him doing his parody of TLC's Waterfalls, I
Phony
think.
calls. Yeah.
Phony calls. Yes, yes, yes. And that's all I remember of it.
Yeah.
That is all I remember. I don't
Yeah, I don't
know.
have much either. I remember
Yeah.
there was videos while he was changing. Pretty astute little kid, honestly. As I'm examining this memory, I remember realizing that the videos were being played while he was changing costumes.
Yes.
And they
Yeah.
would play little clips of from the videos or whatever.
Yeah. That was our first concert, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. We're like, I don't even know.
Unless
It was
unless we
8
like
maybe.
count like Venetian Festival.
Yeah,
Which
just
I mentioned on I think the last episode. I mentioned how your band opened for Stacey Rico at the Venetian
hell yeah,
Festival.
dude.
And
What's up, Stacy? You out there?
Stacey Rico,
You still doing it?
I think that she's a yoga instructor now.
Oh, good. I think I'd say she was dead.
No,
That's
no, no,
good.
no. She's not dead. She's not dead. But she does not make music.
No,
She stopped making music. She released one more album after that album that she toured
no.
with, and then she retired from music.
I guess I beat Stacy Rico then, huh? No big
Who would have
deal.
thunk? Who would have thunk? No big
Gotcha.
deal.
Still
But
at it.
still at it, still at it. And you know, it's interesting. Like, I would love to actually interview her and like figure out why
Yeah. I wonder
she
if she
left the
would. She
music
might, huh?
industry. Yeah.
Reach out.
I know that she does like rare things once in a while. Do you know who the singer Tori Kelly is?
Mm-mm.
Tori Kelly is an incredible vocalist and a very underrated singer. Um, she's kind of gone pop, she's gone R&B, she's gone gospel, but she actually did an Instagram live, I think at one point throughout the pandemic with Stacey Rico, and it was
Cool.
like her first like public appearance in like God knows how long.
Yeah.
But yeah, she doesn't do much anymore apparently, but back to this pop music thing. Like, what
Yeah,
in
you
your
said it there. You said pop. She does pop, and then you mentioned a couple other genres, and I can't remember them because I just got so fixated on it. You said you used pop as a genre there.
right? Yeah, and that's the thing that's so interesting because I think, especially these days, we get so hung up on genre, which I don't know. I feel like growing up, and maybe this is just because the way that we were raised, and maybe it was just because the way that like our tastes kind of gravitated. Like, obviously my favorite singer is Madonna, who's famous for reinventing her sound.
Mm.
And she did her Bedtime Stories album, which was very much R&B inspired, and then the follow-up album to that was Ray of Light, which was electronica and world
Right.
music.
It's like
And then
her and
after,
Bowie are so good at being themselves, but in many facets. It's like it's
yeah,
always them somehow, but then it's like, oh my god, it's like completely different, but it's still it sounds like them, and it sounds like the record. They're not emulating anything, they're not like trying to be something. They're just like
right.
expressing themselves with this different sheen, this different dressing.
Yeah, and I agree because I think that that's a huge part of it. But I feel like today more than ever, even though like with streaming, there's a lot of positives I think that can happen. I think that, obviously newer artists and independent artists can kind of, do their own thing and build their own followings, and there's a lot more chances of self-promotion and exposure through social media and things like that. But at the same time, I feel like there's this weird expectation now that like artists have to be one thing, especially in the pop music scene, and you have to have one sound and you can't really deviate from that. And I think that's why Beyonce's gotten so much controversy with her Cowboy Carter album. Well, I think that's also like laced with lots of racism as well,
Mm.
and her being a
Mm-hmm.
black woman, and black people doing country music. But people really, even before Cowboy Carter, Beyonce has gotten a lot of criticism about switching up her styles and sounds with her albums. And I don't know, I just find the conversation about genre fascinating. I find the conversation about pop music fascinating. So to you, Alex W.G. Rickel, what do you think, what is pop music to you, and is it its own genre, or do you think it's a broader term?
I think it was a broad term for a long time
Mm-hmm.
until like late 90s, early 2000s. I think it became a genre. And
Okay.
and there's like, and you kind of said some bubblegum pop earlier, because there is like that. There's like a
Mm-hmm.
sheen to it all. But I think it's
Mm-hmm.
also part of like, it's become self-aware, it's like it's not just like whatever hits, and then we're chasing it, but now it's like we know these certain things hit, and it's even like it doesn't have to even all sound the same, but there are certain like melodies and like and phrasings of things and like chord progressions that
Mm-hmm.
all work to serve like a hit making machine. That's like not even talking about people who are good, because people who are like talented will all do that sort of stuff too, and they may have a crew of people helping them do that, but then you'll see like it's more about like the everything on the peripheral of it, it's like how everyone's trying to emulate it, and you see like this
Mm-hmm.
weird distilled version of it in the cheap imitations. That's kind of how where you look for the caricature of the thing, because it's like it's an impression, like you
Yeah.
think of someone doing an impression of somebody, a president that you don't like, like what are they doing? There's a lot of big hand moves or whatever, it's like
Sure.
um so I think somewhere in there pop music became like, you had like digital things coming into the 80s and the 90s. It started getting refined, and then it was like something snapped with like recording technology and consumerism and like like getting it out to people, whether that was like just very very early internet to like like early like popular internet to like there's something all in that big symphony of things happening that created pop the genre. And then it's still hard to put an actual finger on it because it has many faces, but
Yeah.
I
I
think
think that you're spot on with, like, especially in the 90s, late 90s, there was a shift.
mm,
There was a shift. There was something that happened, I would say, like, 1997, and I always talk about on this podcast like 1997, 98, and 99 being like kind of like my sweet spot as far as
mm,
like in as a time in music, but I do feel like in those years leading up to Y2K of it all, there was like this perfect marriage of like MTV, TRL, as you mentioned, consumerism, because TRL was kind of like you called in or you went on the internet and requested your favorite video, and there would be a
right,
countdown, and you'd see like where did your favorites land, and then they would do
yeah.
video premieres, and then that was also the age of like you had
Well,
the Britney
reality TV
Spears
was coming in too.
reality TV, but you had like your boy bands, you had all of these things where then it was like everything was kind of marketed and tied together, and then fans would go out to the stores and make sure to buy the album because they wanted their favorites to have their million selling first week
Right.
sales type of thing. It was such a really fun and exciting time, but very interesting time where it just like something happened, something clicked where just it was like the perfect amalgamation of all of that kind of coming
Yeah.
together to create that time period.
Yeah. Britney Spears, I think, is a big like, and her and obviously Christina Aguilera and the whole plethora of boy bands and like that started it. I think it was in that, which is hard not to
Hmm.
acknowledge, like how designed that was too. There's a lot of people trying to sell you something, you
Oh,
know,
absolutely. Yeah.
and which is like it's always someone's always been trying to sell you something since day one. It's since recorded music was available. It's like it's been the game, and it's
Yeah.
always been a balance between like someone who's like, we're putting the money down so you can record this and we got to get it back, and the people who are like, I'm just trying to express myself and I'd love to do it for thousands of people for a living. There's
Right.
always going to be tension there, but there's yeah, there's something about where we were. Man, everyone was riding high at the end of the 90s. Everyone had a lot of
It,
money.
lots of money. Well, I was talking about that with someone where I was like, I missed that era because I felt like obviously it was pre social
Okay,
media.
Zach, get your red hat out. Jeez Louise.
Ew, no, no, but
Gross.
gross. But like everything felt like an event, and I think that with social media, we because we now see the day to day of everything,
Mm,
it kind of what am I trying to say? Like the magic is kind of gone in a way.
Mm.
Whereas like in that time period, you know, especially with like the TRL, I mean, we used to run home and watch that, or at least I did.
I know,
And
I did too. I mean, I remember being like, the Offspring are going to be on this week, you know,
right.
because it was, and
Go,
again, it was something for everybody. Like there were times someone you wanted to see was going to be on there, and I was like, I don't give a shit. And then all of a sudden, somebody like Limp Bizkit was going to be on. I'm like, oh hell yeah, dude! They're probably going to
right.
swear in the microphones.
Right. Yeah. And this is like just to show everyone like Alex and I's different tastes. Like obviously I was very much into the Britney, Christina, Madonna, Backstreet Boys, like of it all. And like as you just said, it was you were Offspring, you were Korn, you were Limp Bizkit.
There's a brief period of that. I wanted to find myself like that.
Well,
Ben
right.
Folds
Yeah.
5. Let's say that. I don't
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
wanna
Yeah.
really hit
Yeah.
the only listeners be like, yeah, Alex, Zach's brother's band. I don't know. He likes like Korn. I'm not going to listen to his band Future Killer. They probably sound like Limp Bizkit. We
like,
don't, guys.
No, not at all. Not at all. But, you know, and that's it's what's interesting though, because then when you think back to that time and you think about what was on TRL, everyone we just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
All very different sounding. You could argue that at that time period, Korn, Limp Bizkit were also considered pop in a way.
100%. That was huge. That
huge
new butt metal, new wave butt metal, whatever. Yeah, it was everywhere. You couldn't get rid of it.
Yeah. And then you had obviously your Backstreet Boys and Christina and whatnot. That was it's more of the traditional, but what I would say what people would think of what pop is. Okay, so here's a question. When I say a pop song, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say pop song?
It's Britney Spears every time, I think.
Really?
I mean, it's just that is like, yeah.
Every time Britney Spears, her song every time, or like just her in general?
No, I didn't know there was a song called Every Time. No, just like, it's like she is an icon of that for me. I think because she did it so well, you know.
Yeah.
But it's
yeah.
That's the thing too. Is like, what would it be if you didn't call it pop music? What would you call it? Because like Rage Against the Machine fucking is rock, but they were also huge. Nirvana was grunge, grunge rock, right? But they were the most popular band in the world for a stretch, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so what would you call Britney Spears without pop?
I mean, one could argue dance music, but
I get that. I would say, yeah.
But you could also like, it's the funny thing with genre. To quote Linda Martell, genres are a funny little concept, aren't they? But like, what is dance music then, right? Because I think of like, when I think of dance music, I kind of instantly think of like the oons oons quote unquote beat of it all, right? Oons oons oons. But that's not. Britney does have some of those songs, but the majority of them are not like that, right? You've got, and that's what's fascinating about Britney too, similar to Madonna, is that like, you know, you have a song like Baby One More Time, right? That da-na-na, that with the piano, with this, like, I would say
what
it's
a
probably
90s sounding piano too.
Right.
I know, when did that song come out?
1998. It was the very end of 98. And then the album came out early 1999.
Yeah.
But then you have her song "I'm a Slave for You," which is very much like in the early 2000s. It was produced by the Neptunes, very much like R&B hip hop style. And then you have a song like this. I don't know if you're familiar with the song, but it's called "Breathe on Me," which was on her 2003 album. Which was
not popular in the post-COVID era. Post-COVID area. The mouth is the post-COVID area.
Right. That song is very like Euro dance, if you will, right? It's a very like minimalist, throbby, pulsating beat type of song.
Yeah.
All very different sound, and but all considered pop, right? Because she's Britney Spears. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing. I too, whenever I think of like pop music, I think Britney Spears is the first person to come to mind, because I think that she really did embody this new package, if you will, as you kind of talked about earlier, of what pop music is. Her and then like, you know, if I think of specifically like what is a pop song, I would say both Baby One More Time and Backstreet Boys' I Want It That Way are kind of like
oh my God. Yeah.
Right.
That was everything. It was huge. Yeah.
Huge. Did you watch SNL 50 by chance?
I just watched a clip. I didn't watch the whole thing. I just watched the weekend update clip, just like an hour of it.
Okay. So on Friday, they did like a homecoming concert where they had a bunch of former musical guests come on the show and perform, and Backstreet Boys was one of them. And they came out
Whoa.
and they performed "I Want It That Way," and
Whoa.
everyone, like every person, was singing every word to that song, and it
Hey,
was just
quick
like,
question. What
yeah,
did they want and in what way?
great question. There is
Is that established in the song?
no, well, actually, so I don't know how true this is, but this is what is on the internet that is I
It's doggy
wanted
style sex, isn't it?
right.
They
I
wanted sex and they wanted it doggy style.
exactly. That from what I know, I Want It That Way. The version that we know was
Mm.
not intended to be the actual version on the album.
Wow.
I believe what happened was there was so much hype and anticipation for the Backstreet Boys album to come out. From my understanding, I think that I Want It That Way somehow leaked and got into the hands of a radio DJ and put it on the radio. And when it was more of a concept demo where Max Martin was going to change the lyrics later and to make it make more sense.
Wow.
I believe they even recorded a new version with that
That
like
is
that.
so cool.
But because the version that we know kind of took off, and because it was more of a concept demo, so they were kind of just putting words together and they were like, we'll fix this later and make it actually make
Yeah.
sense. And but it took off, and so that's the version that we know. I would, don't quote me on that, everyone. Like, I would need to like research that a little bit more to see if that's actually factual, but like,
I hope
yeah,
so. That's a really cool story.
right, yeah,
If it is.
and
Yeah.
right, and so yeah. But to answer your question, I think they do want doggy
Sex
style
and they want it
sex.
doggy style.
Yeah, they want it raw. They
Yeah.
want it just like absolutely raw, just raw
That's what they're
dogging it.
getting at. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I think there's a really interesting thing you're hitting on there, whether it's true in that story or not. It's true in life that like a lot of songs I have written, they start by I'm like playing, I'm making music,
Hmm.
whether it's on a piano or a guitar, or I've assembled some drum machines and I'm playing bass, or we're just jamming with the band and I'm listening to back on an instrumental jam and I'm hearing whatever it is. There's something already going, and then a melody comes to mind just with like nonsense sounds or words, and then you open your mind up for words, and sometimes those words come out and they don't make any sense, but they sound kind of good together, and so I'll leave them. And then
Hmm.
it's whether I'm listening later or as I'm writing it down, or um I've just left it and it's as a place marker, like you're saying, and then it's like it takes a minute. Sometimes it's I don't care. Sometimes I'm like, the gist of the song is elsewhere, but these lyrics sounded good.
Yeah.
Like in one of our songs, I say, um, speechless drifts in pyramid malls. That was just like
Ooh,
something that came out of my mouth, like truly, like, I don't know, it just popped out. And then the longer I've sat with that, it's become such a rich texture. And it's like, it
it
talks
does.
about
Yeah.
society and just like how we like worship capitalism, and like these speechless drifts, this thing that like means nothing, yet it's like building and collecting everywhere. It's like can get blown by the breeze, and these pyramid malls. I've obsessed with trying to see this giant glass pyramid that looks like the architecture of a mall made in the 90s that's kind of abandoned, and all these shitty food stores and jewelry stores and things are all just sort of left in there. And so there's something about, I know that's a magic of you just have to kind of put words out there. And that's not to say like, please write good songs, try,
Right.
but like
Right.
also sometimes you can let it be abstract and then everyone else will find the meaning. Like, trust me, give me some lyrics, and if I will think you meant something and I will think about it and try to figure it out for myself. And
Hmm.
you may just be like, nah, man, I was just like pointing randomly at a book, and doesn't matter. It now means something to me in my life.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that you bring up something really interesting too about pop music, is that pop music oftentimes gets criticized for being simple and kind of straightforward and to the point and not interesting and things like that. But I think that the what we've seen time and time again throughout history is that some of the biggest, most well-known pop songs are these really catchy songs that have weird lyrics, interesting choruses, interesting hooks. Like I'm thinking of Lady Gaga, obviously Bad Romance with like the rah rah ah ah,
Right.
and the
Was that a place
Gaga.
marker, or and then she's like, actually, that kind of rips. Just leave it.
Right, yeah, or her new song, I don't know if you've heard her new single Abracadabra,
Mm-mm.
but the chorus goes abracadabra abra una na, and then it's like all these silly kind of
Mm-hmm.
lyrics, and then the hook of the song is like abracadabra abracadabra, and she like does all these like crazy things with her voice, but I'm like, and it's her biggest hit in years right now, and it's like, this is what makes pop music really interesting and fun. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not always going to be super straight and narrow and just to the point. Like, it's oftentimes really weird and quirky and very, you kind of put things together that you wouldn't necessarily think would work. Even in a song like, I'm going to use this as an example, Taylor Swift's song Style. I remember watching the behind the scenes footage of her and Max Martin putting that song, like producing that song together. And there's like or how does it go? It's like kind of like a tape, like you're
You
clicking.
okay?
Right. It's kind of like when you're like hitting like a tape, hitting record like on a cassette tape
Oh yeah.
player. It's like and then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, and I'll write your name. But he was like, leave that in there. It's so annoying. He was like, it's so annoying. People are gonna love that. And it's gonna drive them insane. And he's right. It's like one
Mm-hmm.
of the best parts of the song. It's just I can't explain why, but it works.
Yeah.
And so
Music is sound.
yeah.
It's all sound, and we forget that. We truly do. People think like, no, it's about like
Music is
the
sound.
yeah. It's obvious, and yet we overlook how simple that is. And
Yeah.
people will often chase like prowess of some kind, whether you're writing or your performance and your particular instrument or whatever. But like at the end of the day, there's that Future Killer EP we just put out. There's loads of stuff tucked into it that is not me like shredding on a bass and singing. It's like
Yeah.
my voice in the background when I was like waiting to sing. I'd be like, and like that
Yeah.
is still in the recording. And because this one, oh my God, it was so funny. Matt and I are working on it, and we were listening back to, I think we were doing vocals, and we heard this thing like in the kind of this little faint in the background. It's just like, and we're like, what is that? And we was like, it was
Yeah.
cool. The timing was cool. And we listened over and over again, could not figure out what it was. So then we're just looking at the WAV files in the recording software. And then we see it, the three lines that are clearly the sound, And so we
Yeah.
solo it, and it's on one of the vocal tracks when we play it, and it's me going honk, honk, honk. It's so funny. And we were just like, oh, it stays, we had to like find the balance by the time we're hitting like the final mix,
Right. Yeah.
I think one of the mixes came back and we're like, too loud.
Yeah.
It's so obvious.
Yeah.
But when you don't know it's me going honk, 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 but there's just this like thing in there that it tickles you in a way. And yeah,
Right.
you're right. Like that weird sounds, like they carry it over that
You know,
finish line.
you know what that kind of reminds me of is, so I'm really obsessed with the way that like songs break down into stems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got everything from the different drum beats to synthesizers and guitar and every vocals, background vocals, all the things. And it's Michael Jackson's, a bunch of his stems leaked onto the
Mm-hmm.
internet in recent years, and one of the songs is Scream, his song with
Mm-hmm.
Janet Jackson. And the layers that are in that song and the samples from his own songs and her songs
Mm-hmm.
that you'd have no idea are in there,
Yeah.
but all together create all of these really interesting sounds. Like, it samples, I want to say, different beats from In the Closet, his song In the Closet. It samples stuff from her song The Knowledge. It samples, I want to say that it also samples something
Cool.
from Jam. Yeah,
That's really cool. They're sampling their own stuff at that era. Yeah.
all their different stuff, plus new instrumentation, plus all these different background vocal. Like the layer, I think that they probably capped out on like the amount of layers that they could put on a song. It was crazy.
That's
Beatboxing, it
yeah.
was nuts. And
That's
just
so cool.
yeah, and you just never would really know because of the way that things get mixed, and then you just you know, it
Yeah.
all comes together as one sound, or you
Oh
hear
yeah.
your ears hear it as one sound.
Right.
But yeah, that's
God, the
wild.
end of Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, where
Hmm.
it's just like it's just like that cool rhythm, you know. And it's
Yeah.
like you can tell that somebody was like, in hearing that, probably Michael, was like, at some point like that went on too long and like the other things had fallen away, and he's like, boom, leave that, you know, like that's cool, as it all deteriorated. And it was just because that's the end of the tune where you really actually get to hear that so clear, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite moments.
I love that. I do. I love when songs. I love when there's a part of the song. That's my problem with like. This is a dead horse that I beat every episode, but like this is like my my issue with
You.
with. You know,
All right,
this
we're
is
getting to the part of the show where Zach beats off a dead horse or whatever.
we're beating it off. We're beating it off. But I can't stand short songs these days because it's so popular now to release a song
Mm,
that is like 2 to 2.5 minutes at the most.
yeah.
But you lose all of these really interesting parts of music that, you know, takes you on that journey, right? Pop song or
Mm.
not. Like I'm not saying, you know, right now I'm in like kind of a phase. I think you are too, based on some of the music that you've released recently. But like I'm in a phase right now where I'm definitely listening to like long remixes that are like 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes long. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
something that
And
I
most
just
feature killer songs are like 6 to 10 minutes. It's so funny when
yeah.
we have like a set and someone's like 30 minutes and we're like, okay, 3 songs. It's not
Right.
much. We like to
Right.
go on, and a lot of instrumental stuff too, which is like, it's funny. Sometimes I laugh. I'm like, how do people fit so many lyrics into a song? And I realize it's because they're not doing all these big instrumental breaks and stuff. But like,
Right.
you know, there
Yeah.
was a period where I didn't realize that. And I was like, what the fuck? You know, like,
Right. Yeah.
but this
Like
is like 5 sentences and the song's like 5.5 minutes.
right. Yeah. But it's like you know, that's to me, and I think this is how we were raised with, you know, the artists that dad introduced us to and raised us on, but like, you know, we grew up listening to music that did have those like intros and outros and instrumental breaks and
Right.
dance breaks and choruses and bridges and all those things, and you just can't get that in 2.5 minutes.
Right. A guitar solo. Give me a guitar solo.
Yeah.
Why not? You know,
Yeah.
and give it to me in the middle of a Michael Jackson song. Why not? You
Why
know,
not?
like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Like, and
That's the
it's
thing with like things that are so, this information age and predictability and like, you know, things that work and they have been successful. And I think for far too often people are chasing success and success only, not the artists. It's generally like the money bag folks, you know,
yeah.
like, and so they don't want you know, to take any risks. And then you get like attention span shrinking, like with Instagram, you know, and
Yeah.
reels, and it's like, can you do it in 15 seconds? It's like, no, I can't. And or you know what I should say, I don't want to, you know. I
Right.
could try. And that's like, you know, I think would do that with those something videos. I would make some that were like, you know, I was trying to like get quick and it was fun because that's all it needed to be. It's cute,
Mhm.
play with it, but don't
Yeah.
let it define you. It's not what you have to do. Because then here's my 30-second video that was charming, and you're like, whoa. But then that's like gonna prepare you for when I release a 7-minute video where I'm talking about like how hard it is to like feel like yourself some days, you know? And that's where
Right.
we're gonna need to take some fucking time to talk about it. And
Right.
you know, it's just like, let's play with this new stuff, but let's not let it fully define us and become like it and change our art, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think what's real, like, I think just from a mathematical standpoint, because now instead of, you know, radio play or downloads or sales, it's all about streams, right?
I
So if you
know.
think about it from a mathematical equation, because so many record labels and management teams and whatnot look at the amount of streams that someone gets. And if you look at, you know, if you release a song that's 2 minutes, you're going to listen to that song 5 times in 10 minutes versus the 1 10-minute song, right? So that 10
Mm-hmm.
minute song will get one stream, that 2 minute song will get five. And
Right.
so so I understand it from a mathematical, like, oh, I need to have X amount of streams. And unfortunately, these days, that's what's so important to all these people. And I mean, I know we're talking about music, but just kind of like to veer really quick, I saw a quick interview from Maya Hawke, Ethan Hawke,
Mm.
and Uma Thurman's
Mm-hmm.
daughter.
Yeah.
Um, she was talking about how nowadays in movies and television shows, casting directors are given a quota essentially, and I'm butchering this a little bit, but she's basically saying that like when they're casting a cast, the cast as a collective has to have a certain amount of followers on
Oh
Instagram.
my God.
And so
Oh,
because
yeah.
she was talking about how she wants to delete her social media,
Yeah.
and she said that one of the producers or casting directors or whomever said to her, they were like, you know,
Probably an
if you
agent
do,
was like, listen, dude, like,
well
I
they
just
were
want
like
you to
if
know you might get fucked.
well they were like if you do that, we have to cast around the fact that then we've lost X amount of followers,
Yeah.
because that's how they promote movies and stuff now. So I would assume that this is also a similar thing. I remember an artist saying, this is a couple years ago now, I forget who it was, but they were saying like labels won't even consider releasing a song or a single unless it has so many views on TikTok.
Yeah.
And you know, I know that a lot of artists have kind of pushed back on the whole TikTok of it all. I know that I've expressed my
The
frustrations with
TikTok of it all.
the TikTok
It's,
of it all.
it's your book.
You're right. But like the way that it's very traditional now for artists to tease a song on social media for a certain amount of weeks. Typically, it's usually around 3 to 4 weeks before they'll like, you know, kind of put a snippet out, and maybe they'll put a second snippet out. Sometimes they'll even put a third snippet out, and then they'll release the single within like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I understand it from an independent artist's point of view and reasoning, because that's how they get their music out, and that's their only way that they can promote, right? So I get that. That's how the algorithm works. But at the same time, there was an artist recently that I love, and I love the song, but the song is only 2.5 minutes. And it's one of those like dance pop songs that is kind of just a little bit more on the repetitive side. So like the two of the verses are the same.
Mm-hmm.
So when they released the snippets of the song and then the song actually came out, I was like, oh, we had the song already. We
Yeah.
just had to piece them together. And to
Yeah.
me, that made the release from me really anticlimactic. I
Totally.
was
Yeah.
like,
It's like
I
seeing a
was like,
movie trailer and then you see the movie and you're like, oh my God, they showed me the whole movie. They made a summary of a movie instead of just like a teaser and a trailer. Like I know what's happening. No
right.
surprises left. Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
bummer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's people
And
getting lost
so,
in marketing and it's in the marketing numbers and they think we gotta get a surefire hit. And so they bank only on that instead of like actual create like taking a risk on creativity, which is like, whatever. You
yeah.
might make some dollars if you're just playing it safe, but you won't. I don't,
Yeah. It
yeah,
does look, it does feel like at least pop music is starting to take a little bit of a veer and a little bit of a turn. I have noticed that certain songs are starting to get a little bit longer again. I think that, but you know, who knows? I know that
yeah,
things are always kind of pushing and pulling, and things shift and change all the time. So I'm sure that there will be a time again where people will get tired of the 2 minute song of it all. But
yeah.
we'll see. We shall
I
see. I
hope
love
so.
how I love how I started this episode by being like, I'm so tired of people just like investing things that they dislike, and then I spent like half this episode
These
talking
fucking
about
idiots on the internet. That's funny.
right.
Now
Well,
there's a difference between like being like some constructive criticism about things and our
mhm,
goals here, like we're saying, what's your goal, what's your end game? Our goal here is to like provide spaces and support for like solid creative work, and
yeah,
like giving people the time that it deserves, whether that's to make it or to digest it, like that is valuable. And that is
yeah,
something that, even though everything is so fast for us these days,
yeah,
um, that it doesn't necessarily mean that. I mean, let's be honest, our brains aren't capable of doing all that. We're dumb. Like
right,
we evolved on this planet for thousands and thousands and thousands of years without TV, and like
right,
surfing the internet. Like that is insane. Like our
yeah,
world doesn't change that fast when all you have is like your feet to walk around.
right,
So there's a certain point, and it's amazing that we can look out into the world though. And the internet is incredible. I'm not knocking it. It's just that like let's remember like who we are, and there's so much joy and value in like sitting down with a book or a movie or an album. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's cool that vinyls are getting some resurgence in some more, like Taylor Swift sells vinyls. That's unheard of, you know what I mean? Like for a stretch
Hmm.
of pop music. It's cool
Yeah.
because that, I hope people are listening to him too. And if you are, then you know like what that does is it means you put on the record and you listen to side A and you make a choice. Am I going to listen to side B or put on side A or B of something else? You know, it's like
Right.
sometimes when me and my friends are listening to records, we will like, oh, let's put on that one track that's like the third track on the B side or something. But for the most part, we put on at least a full side, if not a full record.
Yeah.
And you're then sitting with something and like, this is what it takes to enjoy it. I'm going to sit in it and enjoy it. Like the most recent piece of music I released was a 20-minute long ambient piece.
Yes. It's
Like
yes.
sit and listen to that.
Right. Exactly. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, as mom would say.
Yeah. She would say that. She was a heavy pipe smoker.
A heavy on the pipe smoking. Well, before we get to songs we don't talk about enough, Alex, you have something very exciting that's coming up, which I'm really
I do.
excited for you for. You are do you want to say?
No, you go ahead.
You are opening for My Morning Jacket in Louisville.
I am.
That is
Yeah.
so
A
fucking
couple of
cool.
times. Yeah.
When you had released the poster, I only saw one date. Are there multiple dates?
So Future Killer is playing on the 26th and it's and then the Friday the 25th before then we're playing as Lacey Guthrie and the Flower Eating Monster, which Lacey is one of my closest friends and collaborators in town, and she makes incredible music. And so we often act as her backing band. So it's like, and there's a few extra members and other things. So it's like Future Killer is one thing, and then the Flower Eating Monster is another thing. So we'll all be up there playing, but it'll be a different person singing different songs, and it has a totally different vibe, you know. But and then the 26th, the Future Killer night will be me laughing into a microphone for everybody.
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Where in Louisville is this being?
Oh
Is
my God, I'm
this
so glad you asked. It's at the Palace Theater, which is like the most magical theater I think I've ever been to. It looks like you're in the seats, and there's like kind of your main floor, and there's a balcony. And no matter what, there's not a bad seat because you look at the stage and it looks as if it's like a stage that's outside in like some old world square in like an old city. Like literally there's like fake building facades and stuff all around it, and then the ceiling looks like dark sky, like it's a very dark blue, and there's like pinpoints of light using fiber optic cables to look like stars in the sky. There's giant like
wow?
statues of like, you know, Grecian looking women in togas and shit. It is I mean, it's so surreal and magical that it's like it's, you know, playing with My Morning Jacket is awesome. There are some great friends, some of my best friends in the world, and that's exciting. But I think we'd all agree that the most exciting thing is probably that we all just get to play on the Palace for a few nights, you know, like
Yeah.
it is truly such a magical stage. And I couldn't, yeah, the whole thing is incredible. And I just feel like the fattest boy in the picnic currently.
I love that. Oh my god, that's so cool. Well, everyone get your tickets. They're going to Are they sold out yet?
I think they're all sold out.
Okay, well,
Yeah. You can try. Yeah,
scalp your
scalp 'em.
tickets. Scalp
Yeah.
them.
They did add some extra dates that we aren't playing, but some other incredible musicians in Louisville are playing. Our friend
Very cool.
Maggie Halfman and 10th Street Dre, and there may be another one. I don't know. But
Very cool. Well, congratulations. That's so
you
exciting.
would love Maggie, by the way. Maggie's
Yeah.
from Wisconsin, and she's one of my closest pals around here too. And we have a lot of laughs about being Northerners down south.
Love
But she also
that.
makes incredible music, and it would be an interesting debate in terms of pop music because she makes like music that feels like it's still her voice and modern, but it does
Mhm.
also feel like it's ripped out of like late 90s like
Interesting.
yeah, it's cool. You should check her out, Maggie Halfman.
Maggie Halfman. Okay,
Yeah.
I will. I love that. Well, it's gotten
Yeah.
to the point in the show where we always like to end every episode where we talk about, each of us talks about a song that we don't talk about enough. Typically, it's an album track, bonus cut, maybe it's a remix, maybe it's like a special track that was like released on like the Japanese version of an album,
Mhm.
whichever. Alex, do you have a song that we don't talk about enough?
I do. I thought about this a lot, and I went through a few things, and there's some good choices, but I think I really want to talk about "It's My Life," and it's not the one you think.
Okay.
It's by the original people who wrote the song originally, Talk Talk. Do you know Talk Talk?
Yes. I only know who they are because of It's My Life, the No
Mm,
Doubt version.
yeah.
But oh my
Well,
gosh.
I mean, and that band too, talk about pop music. They were like synth pop. Their first two
Hmm.
records are like considered like 81, 82, 82, 83, I think when those two records came out. And It's My Life was their big, like one of their big breakout hit.
Yeah.
Um, and Such a Shame, I think, was the other really big hit. But um, you know, Mark Hollis's voice is really interesting. And when you look at him sing, he looks like he's screaming as loud as he can. His face is red and is all like strained, but his voice is awesome, but it never breaks. It's always very soft and round. It's
Yeah.
bizarre. So you hear him singing, you think he's just like chill. And then you see him sing and he's like giving it all. It's incredible. But that, just with this whole like the concept of your show and everything, I thought that was maybe not just that song, which is an incredible tune. Listen to it, in particular if you're a fan of the original one. But I would hope that it would be a gateway to their wider catalog, because that is,
Right.
and they're a masterclass in some really interesting, like pop music, in that it's catchy, it's melodic in a way that it gets stuck in your head, with interesting lyrics and subject matter. But they also start, those first few records are like a campfire, and they just built it up nice and big. So those first few records come out and they're just banging, and it's like grip roar, and it's awesome. And then the third record, The Color of Spring, is it came out in 86, actually, the year I was born. And it is like that sweet spot of the fire where it's like all the logs are hot and caught, but some of them are just more like hot coals, and there's still fire. You're warm, but it's not like too hot. You can sit kind of close. And it's like some more avant-garde elements, a little more soft and experimental, but still powerful lyrics and incredible melodies. And then the rest of I think there's only Spirit of Eden after that. Was there one more? I can't remember. There might be two records, but it might just be one record after that that is incredibly drawn out. And then the final thing they ever did before Mark Hollis died was he did a solo record that is like the most spaced out. And literally, like, it's like super long, soft, slow music. And it's like the end of the campfire, where it's just like some smoldering embers. It's so quiet and soft and beautiful. So their whole trajectory is really interesting. Just look at a band in music, and they started off making pop hits in the the beginning of the 80s, being like, here's this fucking synthesizer, and like, we're dancing and partying. And it slowly kind of burns out, not like in a bad negative connotation, but just like beautifully, until where it's like the end of the night and you're like, it's time for bed. So
Right. I love that. That's a great answer.
hell yeah.
That might be one of the best ones I've had yet.
Oh, thank you.
I love
Thanks for
that.
asking me that question.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. I am going to go with a song that is going to be very left field for me. I don't expect any of our listeners to know it. You will know it. This is an ode to our dad. Um, Dad used to always make us like these mixtapes, right? And it would be
Uh-huh.
a bunch of his favorite songs. And even before that, a lot of our home videos, he would like dub music over, and which like no one ever
Yeah,
really
right.
did back then.
VHS tapes. Yeah, it
VHS,
wasn't like
yeah.
there's no digitry at all. It was like, yeah.
Yeah, so he would like we had all these home videos of just, all of this music dubbed over it, and just, kind of like personalized home music videos, if you will. Um but a song that sticks out in my mind, and I want to say this song in particular is probably one of the reasons why I love so much of the hookiness in pop music and the catchiness of pop music. It's the song Little Willie by Sweet. Little Willie, Willie won't
Oh my God.
go home.
Go home. I was like,
But
what the
you
hell is that
can't.
song? I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so, like, you know, for those, and I don't
Oh.
really listen to music pre like 80s. It's just for whatever reason, not typically what I gravitate to or what I go to. But this is one of those rare songs. I think it was released in like 79, again by the band Sweet. And I'm sure that like most of my followers have no idea who I'm talking about. But this song is so fucking catchy and such a like it is like this like, you know, 70s rock pop song essentially. And this chorus is just like that little Willie Willie won't, is that chord change at the end. Go home, but you can't push Willie won't go. Try telling everybody but won't know. Like it's so good. And so I am fairly certain that is one of those songs, between that and like Michael Jackson and Madonna, like, but that song in particular, I'm fairly certain is what instilled in my brain like my love of catchiness and catchy choruses and hooks and things like that, because
a good melody. Yeah.
it really is. And it gets stuck in my head all the time.
That's awesome. That's so funny. I thought about those, something that like those mixtapes Dad would make, and I was, when I was thinking about it, what song to talk about, that came up, and of the tunes that came up for me, that was not one of them. That's so interesting that that's like you have hooked into that one.
Yeah.
I was thinking of I like bread and butter.
Oh
I
yeah.
like toast and jam. Or,
Oh my God.
So sweet.
Yes.
Those mixtapes, they were like not kid songs, but there were all these like kid adjacent things.
Right.
They're like simple, you know, or like, you know,
Queen's Bicycle, right?
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. Because it's like literally about riding. I want to ride my bicycle. You know, like
I want to ride my bicycle. Yeah.
Yeah. All the ringing. I remember the ringing. All the bicycle ringing kind of scared me as a kid. All the bells ringing. Remember that?
Well, I remember the bicycle ringing. That didn't scare me, but I remember the motorcycle in the beginning of Michael Jackson's "The Way You Make Me Feel" scared me.
Yeah. That's so funny. The things that scare us as children. We can all agree that Michael Jackson's eyes at the end of the Thriller video is one of the scariest things recorded on ever in film.
Right. Exactly. But oh my God, yeah. I mean, like all of those mixtapes that I mean, like Jefferson Starship, right? Like, I also Wilson Phillips' "Hold On" was another one of those songs that was on those mixtapes. And
when I got a little older, I don't know, there was one that had "Smoking in the Boys' Room," which, you know, smoking in the boys' room. So
I don't know if I remember that one.
It was another one that had like "School's Out for Summer."
Okay,
it was all like kind of school themed tunes. That I remember "Smoking in the Boys' Room" was like, I don't know if you want to be thinking about that, Dad.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Joke's on him. Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Homophonic. Yeah, absolutely. Please come back anytime. I'm so excited that you're here. And until next time, everyone, peace out.
Love you, everybody. Be good to each other.
Be good to each other. And I love you, Alex.
I love you too. Be good to yourself.